Do we need these?
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Really exciting to be here. So this week has been unbelievable, surrounded by all of you incredible people and learning about the work that you do and the communities that you organize within. And to sit on this panel with these incredible young people is an honor, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your transformative work. Now, I want to start by going back to my community. There's a few places that I consider my community. I'm someone that has lived and organized in multiple spaces, but I specifically want to talk about the Saturday school that I run in West London. Yesterday, the 14th of June, marked 6 years since the Grenfell Tower fire. 72 months since 72 lives were lost due to callous indifference and neglect by the authorities that were supposed to protect them. The tower contained predominantly North African immigrant residents, and the cladding that was put up to make the skyline prettier for the affluent residents around them ended up taking 72 lives. The young people at my school have grown up with this as the backdrop: neglect, no justice, and a systemic failure to protect. The kids in my school don't think it's their place to have big dreams, something that we fight constantly. I want my kids and all globally to have access to the power that comes with having someone believe in you, that you can do anything. And that is what Salzburg Global Seminar and the Kellogg Foundation have given to me. In my soul, if the world was in harmony and I didn't have to be an advocate, I'd be a youth worker full-time. I love working with young people. But instead, I advocate for a quality and inclusive education policy globally. Because, as the late, great Whitney Houston said, I believe the children are our future. Yeah, and one thing I've gotten from this week is that it is imperative that we continue Madiba's fight for freedom and justice for all. And this work doesn't mean just speaking to other policy advisors or policymakers. It means transforming those spaces, and bringing communities into them and bringing children into them. My work at Save the Children has a real focus on child participation. My work in policy has taught me that these spaces desperately need dismantling, and we instead need collaborative decision-making spaces that bring community and youth to the front. And when I say this, I think about Hector Peterson. I think about the young people protesting for water in Soweto. I think about the incredible young people that I work with who can and will be our future leaders. Now, when we think about the importance of collective leadership, I'll start with you, Anga. What are the challenges facing the future of children, families, and communities that really drive your work?
Thank you so much for the question. When I think of collective leadership, it's a perfect example of seeing everyone here. This is collective leadership from different areas, from different countries, people coming together to solve a problem. And it's one message: to care, to heal, to love. And the work that I do is great because I see the spark in their eyes, being there and helping them. And you're like, you know what, I've done a great job today. But we need so much more than that. So it needs a collective. We need people representing us from different countries. Because what I picked up from just yesterday and the days before is that there are many countries that were involved in our struggle, that played a role in our struggle. And we need to, as ourselves, continue that. So I'm excited to see what happens after this. Thank you.
Well, I want to first thank you all. Thank you, Kellogg Foundation. Thank you to my friends for letting me be here. For me, the major challenge now is changing our mindset. Okay, we have to have a consciousness of what our life is. What means intergenerational schemes have changed in the last years. We are the result of a generation, of our past generations. And that means that we are different. We think different. We sense different. We have healed sometimes. We have not sometimes. But it means that we have a different cosmovision. Cosmovision is not something only about indigenous peoples. It's about everyone. How do we refer about nature? How do we refer about another kind of humans, about problems, about what our fears, about what we love, and how do we it? I want to say only just a small example, and I will do it maybe in an extreme way. When we talk about the word queer, okay, in theory, 50 years ago, it was something incredible, impossible, it was something crazy. But now it's something that is clear in the discussion and the speak. And it's something that's happening not only in gender studies, it's also happening in education, in our ambition of world, in our dreams. I think that's the major challenge now, change our mindset.
I think I'm going to have to kind of agree with you a little bit about the mindset. I was actually talking in my breakout session earlier about one of the largest issues that we're having right now. Well, from what I see, not only in my community around Jackson, Mississippi, but Mississippi as a whole, is so many young people are getting bogged down by what we consider failures, especially on our leadership. And so young people feel like, okay, we're getting out, I'm voting, I'm participating, but still this is happening. I'm getting out, I'm voting, I'm participating, but this person is still governor, or this person hasn't been convicted for stealing millions of dollars. All of these different ripple effects of corruption, of mistrust, of just deep-rooted issues of racism within our state and discrimination, all these different things that I think the United States election 2016 really triggered for a lot of people, and then just seeing the way that it's playing out within our state is really making young people afraid to be hopeful. And just like he talked about early this morning in our opening, the worst thing you can have is young people that are connected and not hopeful. And so I think that a lot of my work outside of the material things that we get done and are able to accomplish and putting people in these rooms is making sure that people are not only in these rooms, but encouraged to bring others in those spaces as well.
Wow, aren't they amazing? Woo! Right, okay, challenges. I've been thinking a lot about what the young speaker who recently graduated from the African Leadership Academy yesterday spoke about around joy in our movements. And a lot of the speakers who have come up on the stage and shared their experiences with us have spoken about the trauma that they've gone through, the discrimination, the violence, and how they're motivated to ensure that no one else goes through that kind of trauma again. Children are going through that trauma now. And they're also living in spaces. Children don't get to choose much. They don't get to choose when they wake up, when they go to sleep, what they wear, what they eat, who they meet, where they study, who their families are, who's in their community, what community they live in. And they don't get much choice. And I think it's a real shame that so much of their entry into change-making comes from that trauma. So I think one of the challenges that we face is when we invite children to participate, when we go to them, when we support their youth-led movements, how do we make it so that they're actually experiencing joy, that they actually get to be themselves and be children. And I think the world would be a better place if they did. That's the kind of work that I'm trying to pursue at the politics school anyway.
Beautiful. That was really beautiful to hear about what inspires all of your work. We'll hear a little bit about that anyway. Now, what inspires me is not going to come as any surprise, is young people. But also, a community that's very important to me is the Yemeni community. I'm Yemeni, that's my heritage. And yeah, that's Mali for sure. The Yemeni community that I was raised in showed up to the Stop the War protests. They do lie-ins outside of weapons factories, near where we live, and without realizing, they set the standard for me that this is just the bare minimum, that of course you stand up for people's rights, like that's just what it is to be a human being. But another rogue thing, and I always say this to young people whenever I have the chance to speak to young people either at my school or in other spaces, is that another rogue thing that inspired me is when I first got into activism and student organizing, and I was in meetings with top dogs with the administration, I realized that they had no idea what they were doing. They were making it up as they went along. And there was something about realizing that it's definitely not skill keeping them in power, that if they can be in that space, so can I.
100%.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, you guys, you touched upon your inspiration a little bit in the beginning there, but I just want to dig deeper into that question about what has inspired you to get involved in the global push for racial equity and healing and social justice. I don't know who wants to go first.
Okay, cool.
Go for it.
Let me paint the story, let me paint the picture. A black single mother just has enough to travel to Cape Town. So you have enough just for a bus drive. the black single mothers with a little child that's 5 years old, and they find themselves arriving in Cape Town, but there was no Uber at the time, there's no cabs at the time, to be waiting to be fetched, and no one's there to fetch us. As we sit there, we start, the bus tries to wait for us a bit, like, okay, you guys safe? But obviously, no one's coming to pick us up, so they had to leave. So this is CBD Cape Town at night. And me and my mom saw ourselves just finding a spot and cuddling in that spot, hoping and praying that someone's gonna fetch us. Then we had homeless people come all around. I'm sure that's their spot because we saw that's a good spot. So homeless people just came around us and they were surrounding us with so much compassion, so much empathy. And like Khan said, I saw the empathy. I didn't see the circumstance of being scared. And I think that experience as a 4-year-old changed my life completely, that your circumstances can change like this. So I see people for who they are. I don't want to see people for their circumstance. And now we, as the young people, we need to really implement our skills, our opportunities that we've been given to make sure that other kids that look like us don't go through what we went through. So I think definitely my experience made me so passionate to make sure that I make a difference in people's lives. So thank you.
It's a hard question because it's deeply personal. It's also a communitary question. I think about my personal experience. I think about my father's experience. I think about my country's experience. And as almost any place in this planet, there has been racism, sexism, there has been all the isms that are bad in this world. But there's something in common, and that is feelings. That's how you feel. I can talk about, for example, about my grandparents. They don't know how to read, how to write. About my parents that don't have employee. About my cousins that because of their color, their skin color, well, they don't have the opportunity to dream. Feelings are important, really important, because when you feel sad, when you feel bad, when you feel someone down, inferior over the others, something is bad. People should, the life should not be like that. And also we should not be product of the destiny. Destiny is the place or the conditions we were born. We must break the destiny. We must break, even here possible, we are more product of randomness and not our skills or virtues and our dreams. That's because I'm here. That's because I have done any kind of job, of social job in my life, for feelings.
Yeah, I appreciate those answers. Those made me think and reflect deeply about what I was going to say, because what inspires me is such a tough question. I can never really just pinpoint one particular thing, but I would say that it was in the 8th grade, and that's middle school in the United States, and I had the assignment of redesigning our state flag. Now, at that time, I had no idea what issue there was with our state flag, why it needed to be changed, why anybody cared. And so I was typically the child when we had assignments to ask why. I was never the favorite until about the end of the year. And once I started to do a little bit of research around that state flag, which has since been changed, I had the realization that I was Black. And for a lot of people, they're gonna be like, so you didn't look into the mirror until you were 14 years old? No, I looked into the mirror, but I had gone to schools that were 99% Black. I lived in a city that seemed like to me 99% Black. I spent time around my family. I grew up surrounded by historically Black colleges and universities. My world was Black in my eyes, and what being Black and a woman meant didn't click until that point, especially in the context of Mississippi. And so when I saw that things like this, flags like this can fly above the schoolhouse that I went to and that all of my classmates walked into and over our government buildings, and in my mind at that point, it didn't feel like anybody was doing anything about it, even though the fight had been decades in the work. That is what really inspired me to ensure that other students didn't have that dangerous and painful realization at such a young age. And the older I got and the differences I started to see in my educational experience and those just 10 miles down the road or in surrounding communities, and the ways that I saw my teachers struggle to make sure that we had enough extracurriculars, to make sure that we had enough books to take home, and to see others just not have that same struggle, it creates an imposter syndrome feeling within you when it comes time to pick your institution for higher education, when it comes time to applying for scholarships. And so now, and that feeling has carried with me through middle school, through high school, through college. It wasn't until, I'm a Truman Scholar from Mississippi this year, and it wasn't until I wrote in my application, which was extremely long, it should be illegal, about how much imposter syndrome I even felt just applying to be a part of this program. And I remember one of, they don't call them judges, but it felt like we were being judged. He came to me after, and he said, you know what? I don't know why you put in your application that you feel some type of imposter syndrome, but I'm here to tell you all you need to do is show up. And so hearing those words of affirmation, small things like that really make a difference. So if you see a child who seems to be having some issues or has written about something maybe making them uncomfortable, small little statements and nuggets like that has made the world of difference, and I felt fine since then a couple of months ago. But what inspires me is really just making sure that other students and other young people never experience the feelings that I had growing up.
Yeah.
Is Kevin in the room? Hi, Kevin. So Kevin challenged us the other day to introduce ourselves in 3 different ways, and I want to talk about the place that I'm from. I know my badge said England on it, so I took it off. I'm not from England. I'm from East London. There's a difference. I'm from a borough called Newham, so if you haven't heard of it, you've heard of it now. We were the birthplace of the trade union movement in the UK, the suffrage and the suffragette movement. We've been a sanctuary for migrants and refugees for many, many years, and now we are the most ethnically diverse place, not just in London or the UK, but probably the world. So we're an amazing, diverse space, and it's been amazing to grow up in that neighborhood too. But we also have a lot of disparities. And this is just one of them, 40%, over 40% of the children who grow up in my borough grow up in poverty, and that's in inner London. So seeing that growing up, I wanted to make a difference, and like many of you, I sat in front of the television screens and I saw adults arguing in Parliament, and I didn't think it was good enough. I was in a bit of a rush to make change, so I decided I wanted to learn about it, but schools don't offer political education in the UK. We learn about history, we learn about the monarchy, but we don't learn about government. I know about Henry VIII and all his wives and which one was beheaded and which one died, but I didn't learn about politics. So I joined the Labour Party. The founder of the Labour Party, Keir Hardie, was actually elected from Newham. So we have this incredible political history as well that has come from resistance. And I was 15 at the time. And okay, I'm going to go a bit off track here. Just cut me off whenever you want, right? Just turn off the mics. But Linda, I see you. Linda Sassel, hi. Yesterday you spoke about your outfits, that you prefer wearing tracksuits and sneakers, right? Well, when I was 15 and I joined the Labour Party, I knew that, there's no youth section here. I'm going into this room full of adults. My parents thought I was joining a cult, but they let me anyway. So I bought my first suit. That's why I still look so glamorous. And I thought I'd have a handheld mic, so I got my nails done, and I just need to let you know that Nadia's like, this is the time to turn the mics up. So yeah, and I thought, maybe they'll just think I have good skincare, and I can be quiet, I can pretend to be an adult, I can cosplay a 45-year-old, that's fine, I'm 15. Eventually, I was found out to be young, and that caused a bit of drama, but I kept going, and at 21, I was asked to stand for election to represent my community in Manor Park in Newham. Yes. So I was elected as the youngest in their history, and I was re-elected again last year, so I'm still here. And thank you. But one thing you're so kind, can I take you home with me? One thing I noticed is that the education system still hasn't changed. In fact, the government, I think we've had 13 years of consecutive Conservative government, is now teaching about British values in school, but isn't teaching about democracy, isn't teaching about politics, change-making, none of that. And I was fed up. It'd been 4 years since I had been elected, and I was trying to engage young people, and I thought, well, if no one's going to teach them, I'm going to have to teach them. So counsellors in the UK are part-time. I quit my other job, and now I'm an educator as well. So that's what inspires me. I didn't have that education growing up. I wish I did, and now I get to teach children from the ages of 8 and young people all the way to the ages of their mid-20s about politics, change-making, and support youth-led and intergenerational change.
I know it was a lot for Mariam to talk about herself there, so I'm really proud of you.
Thank you, bestie.
I also just want to shout out that she recently won the Councilwoman of the Year Award, Councilperson of the Year Award, which is incredible. And so on my pass, it says that I'm a young leader. I don't fully know what that means, but I'll take it. But young leader is not a phrase that I would say myself that I am. I would say I'm a head teacher, I'm a principal. Maisie told me that people don't say head teacher. I'm a principal, I'm a policy advisor, I'm a community member, I'm a community organizer. Young leader is maybe something that people see me as, but it's not something that I necessarily resonate with. And I think specifically because I don't think my work is guided just towards young people. My work spans generations, my parents and grandparents' generations, who taught me everything that I know and who I organize with to this day. And I just want to have a side note because in this morning's panel, Pat spoke about stigma around age. And I get asked a lot about what the barriers and challenges are of working with the older generation, and I hate that assumption because my aunties and uncles and the elders in my community are my heroes, and I learn from them every single day. I learn from them constantly, and they continue to toil and serve the community. So the idea that they are done is, for me, incredibly offensive and incredibly wasteful. And as Pat said, we are in this together. And another generation I work with is the young people that I work with and support to achieve their dreams and consult to make our work better. And this forum has been a real testament to the power of intergenerational collaboration and learning. And so my question is, when you think about the importance of generations working together to address social issues and challenges, what are the ways that you see intergenerational leadership manifesting in your own work? Or around you, or what do you wish was in place? And if anyone particularly wants to speak on that, I think, Mariam, you said you had some thoughts on that?
Can you repeat the question? I completely zoned out because I was just in awe of everything you were saying.
When you think about the importance of generations working together to address social issues and challenges, what are the ways in which ways you see intergenerational leadership manifesting in your own work or around you, or what did you wish was in place?
Okay.
Anyone saw?
And you're looking at me. Okay, fine. Well, I think my first example of that kind of work was for my parents. My dad especially, when I was 8, 9, I got into this really wonderful school, and I had people at my house trying to convince him that I didn't need an education because in 10 years' time I'd just become someone's wife. But in 10 years' time I was standing for election, and instead we had people at our house telling them I still didn't need a career. And after I was elected, I think this is really personal to share, but once you're elected into office, the misogyny doesn't end there, it gets worse. Yeah. And people would call him to ask him to tell me that I should change my mind on the legislation that I was trying to pass, on the communities that I was trying to support. And every single time he stood up for me, teaching me how to stand up for myself and the communities that we exist in. Recently, I found out about the Kellogg's Foundation back in October, WKKF. I need to not get in trouble for saying the wrong thing. And I learned all about the amazing work that you do. It's incredible. We don't really see you much in the UK. And I met someone there. I met your policy team. And you guys took me to DC earlier this year, a few months ago, and I met these amazing, incredible women of color, Muslim women of color, and I really, for the first time in my life, got to feel like I actually belong in the space that I exist in. Thank you. So I think something for you all to consider is how you can open doors for young people like that. The things that are easy for you to do mean a lot to us, and every conversation that you have with a young person can really, really change and affect their lives, just in the ways that us interacting with each other has affected all of us. And also, I really want to embarrass Rob right now. He is the one who organized all of those visits for me and isn't just an ally, but my hero. So can we just...
For me, working intragenerationally, if I can speak, is tough. It's very tough. And I will say, really, even though listening sounds easy, well, actually, listening is easy, but doing what you said after listening is the hard part. And so a lot of times, I'm not a fan of really like performative symbols of youth leadership, which I see a lot of, oh, we're going to create this council. We're going to create this commission. The kids get cute T-shirts, and they take pictures with these powerful people. And then when the conversations are had, these powerful people go back to their offices and continue doing what they were doing anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I think that right now we are in a space, especially in the work that I work in, of ensuring not only are conversations being had, but they're productive, that all the feedback is recorded, and that there's a record or some type of evaluation to show how it was implemented in the final piece of policy or whatever we're working on. And so I think that the biggest barrier or issue right now is just that evaluation process. We have all of the fancy terms to come up with the meetings and to make it look pretty on paper or on a PowerPoint, but what needle are we moving forward? And far too many youth policies are made without anyone talking to any sort of youth. And so I found a way that my team, when we were delivering water during the Jackson water crisis, most, if not about 90% of the people that we were delivering water to were elderly people. And when we would come to their doors, knock on their doors, some of them would like invite us in, some of them would tell us to sit down, and we're like, oh, we really don't have time to sit down, but I can't tell her no because she knows my grandma and they go to the same church. And so, but even those interactions, what are you guys doing? You know, just that simple question. How did you guys come together? Letting them know how we organized ourselves, how we're getting the support to even be able to do this in our little cars with all of that water. Having those spark conversations and open their mind when they originally thought, oh, young people are just out doing crime, they don't care, they're partying the whole thing. And so when they saw us as 20, 21, some of us, Crystal, she's 18, out there delivering water, being present, being engaged, letting them know what was going on, that helped kind of shift narratives in their mind and be more intentional with how they thought about young people and just interested in what we were doing. And so just small interactions like that make a world of difference. They help with your legitimacy in the community as you're going in and trying to help and trying to get feedback. And so that's kind of how we've been able to do it. And just like Miss Pat, she dropped so many gems early. I was just writing down. And she was talking about, even if they're not necessarily in a driver's seat, everybody needs a rear view mirror or you're going to crash your car like me. And so having those people who've been there, done that, got a T-shirt to let you know, that may sound good, but we tried that and it didn't work. That saves you a whole lot of trouble, a whole lot of wasted time, a whole lot of resources. And so it's very, very important to have that guidance there as well. People who've already done that a long time ago and it didn't work. And so it's a really critical part of my work. And I wouldn't be able to do what I do without people who've already been there and said, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Latin America. I'm thinking about what's happening in our rural communities and with our indigenous peoples. And I think that we haven't started the conversation. A conversation, an active conversation, is not only hearing, it's talk, listen, understand, and say, what did you understand? And that hasn't started in so many places of this world. When I talk in intergenerational differences, I think in two things. Well, skills, virtues, but also in limits. And we must have self-awareness of both. Yeah? Mm-hmm. It doesn't depend of the age. We have seen so many people child at 60 or 70. Yeah? We have seen everything in this world. It's about attitude and aptitude. Mm-hmm. And when we start that conversation, we must recognize what do we know, what do we don't know, and our mutual biases. Okay? That's really important. That's really important because of the processes by itself make that our mentality changes. And as are really different realities from country to country, from cultures to cultures, there are also different realities between generations. And that is something really important to know and to realize when you're young or when you're an adult. There's no truth. There's no truth. And if we start to developing that dialogue, that conversation, we will have first the self-conscious and know what are our virtues or limits, what can we help each other, and then do something that's really important. That's action. Mm. Sometimes we look at so many young people on the press or on TV, like they are the first politicians or the first activists. Young people must not be new in TV. That must be natural. Mm. What I want to say is that when we have self-awareness of this, we must take action. Young leaders not only must be in conferences. We have the power to take decisions. We have the power to innovate. And also, as a young man, I can say to you that almost all my bosses in my life have been women that are older than mine. And they are wisdom because they know so many things. They have experience, and I also have experience. There's a saying in Spanish that says, I'm going to say it in Spanish, más sabe el diablo por viejo que por diablo. And we young people should never forget that. Because every day we learn something. But also, as young people, every day we can add something to the other generations that now are in different structures. So, for me, that's the action. Let's start the talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even touch on the work I do. So I was the African Youth Waste Network coordinator, and I worked with children ages from the youngest 6 to 27. And in that role, I was educating children about plastic pollution, exposing them to the blue industry, marine industry, and the possible jobs in that industry. My mentor used to say, "Oh, Anga, they're busy fighting over the land, but the world is covered 70% by the water." And that 70% is a 70% opportunity for Africa. Africa is the biggest coastline in the world, and it's so diverse. But what I picked up in the work that I did is that there's subsections, right, in South Africa, as you guys have seen. It's rural, township, middle urban, higher urban. But those kids, how they interacted with the ocean is so different. So the kids from the rural areas, there's some rural areas that are close to the beach, confident, they know the ocean because they've had the elders that have fed off the ocean, and so those kids are exposed, and that's the interlink of having that knowledge of grandparents in that area that see the ocean as a healing place. So for them, they're not scared because the ocean heals. Now, when you go teach in a township, they don't have access to the ocean. The ocean is far. Now, trying to tell a child how to keep the ocean clean, they're like, I can't even see the ocean. Why am I keeping the ocean clean? And that, for me, was having to open their mind to that it starts here in a new environment, then it trickles down to the ocean. But also, I felt so bad in that position because it's like we're pinpointing all this plastic to these communities when it doesn't even come from them. So as Linda said, you had to make a sacrifice. And the sacrifice I made in that space was to leave. Because as I said, it's ticking boxes. I go around schools teaching children, which I loved, but I left with no impact. It's great, they know now, but what more can I do? An hour chat and a t-shirt? Is that enough, really?
Right.
And I'm really hoping that, I was hearing Kellogg's, they have like an 8-year budget plan for grants. That is beautiful. That is longevity. An 8-year plan, not this 2-week budget to show impact and send me the pictures. And I'm really glad that I took the sacrifice now to go into entrepreneurship because I feel a stable income will create stable homes, will create stable kids that would have great ambitions and goals. So I'm going back to entrepreneurship because I really need to help those parents and help the parents help the kids and help the homes. And that ripple effect of a stable income will change the world.
Agreed. Thank you. Maisie, your point about the difficulties with intergenerational work made me think about the assumptions that come with being perceived as younger or young, and that's probably a bit why I shy away from the phrase young leader, because I've been active for 10 years or so, and I feel like I've always been in training or in waiting, and for a while that was appropriate and right and it worked for me, but for then it just wasn't. I was like, I'm already doing the thing. What do you mean I'm in? What training do you think I need? What about resources? What about funding? And I remember it reminds me how Fred Hampton was 21 years old when he was assassinated, and he had a huge impact on his community. And we need to stop wasting time. We need to stop wasting the potential of young people by not seeing them as someone who can offer something to community right now and someone you can collaborate with right now. This is not a future endeavor. And young people are not on standby waiting for their moment, for their time to come. They can do anything right now, and that is young people, but also children. They have something to offer as well. And then Anga, you were saying about the work with the young people, and actually, Mariam, I thought it would be good to dig into a bit about the work that you do with young people in the politics school, and perhaps anything you've learned from the young people in that school and how they interact with it.
Yeah, sure. Can we have the slide up? Because there were pictures of some of my students there, and I really want to have them with me. Tech, hello. Okay, someone will get tech, I'm sure.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Yeah, it will happen. It will happen magically. So I told you the story about the suits, right? And how I felt like I had to, cosplay an adult growing up so that I would fit into spaces that weren't meant to be intergenerational. So now I feel like I have the privilege to be able to create spaces that are youth-led, that are intergenerational, that allow children to be children in those spaces. One of the students on the screen, her name's Anissa. I'll show you who she is in a minute. Anissa's amazing. I'm just going to tell her story. Anissa came to us at the politics school at our first ever session last year during the summer. And her mum was really worried about her coming to the library to learn about politics from me because Anissa has autism and is the shy one in the class. She has a reputation for being very quiet, not very open. But we gave her one-to-one support as well. And, we got along really well. We both like cats, so that was what our conversations were about. Throughout the politics school, she really opened up in a way that even her teachers didn't think was possible because she was written off as having autism as a young child before she could even speak, really. And by the time we ended the politics school, the children wanted to keep going. So they wanted to keep having sessions. So I said, all right, I'll facilitate. You guys take the lead. And they had all these amazing ideas. They created a manifesto of ideas that they wanted to present to our council in Newham. So we facilitated that. I told the students, I'm going to level with you, right? There'll be 100 people in this room, and you haven't spoken in front of your classmates, let alone 100 people. There's going to be cameras. It's going to be live streamed. It's going to be on YouTube forever. You're going to have microphones. There'll be a stage, counsellors, the mayor, media, your families, you name it. So I told them the truth, what they would expect if they were to come to this meeting and present their ideas. I think that's important. And the first person to put their hand up to say that they wanted to speak at the council meeting was Anissa. And her mum was in the background of the session. Sometimes parents come, they love it. And her face went white. She was in shock. She was really quite scared about what this meant. She said, no, Anissa just likes you because you have a cat. She doesn't really want to do this. I said, look, it's not me. I'm not making these decisions. She's making this decision, and I think we should trust her with it. At the time, none of us realized what was actually going to happen. And Anissa gave the most amazing speech to the council, got the first standing ovation I've ever seen in that town hall. And not only that, but on that night, councillors agreed to adopt every single idea that she had presented. That's her in the top right. You can see she's at the front introducing her teammates, speaking about the ideas that she had. And now her head teacher wants us to come into the school and actually teach every single year group because they cannot believe the transformative impact of teaching children about change making. And in saying that, you know, our primary mission in the politics school is to spread joy, firstly. The second is to educate, and the third is to support youth-led change. I think it's important that we don't look at children and young people as a means to an end. Please don't burden us with changing the entire world. It's really not fair. Yeah. But we know that you're not. We know that you're also doing the work, sorry. But the point of that is we just need to give them the agency to be able to make the changes that they want to make in the ways that suit them best, and give them the options of how they would want to do it. And honestly, they'll thrive. And just quickly, because I can see Mia on the screen, Mia is right behind Anissa, and her grandma, Grandma Chipo, messaged me the other day and said, just to let you know, Mia can't stop talking about the politics school, and she wants to be the next Prime Minister. So, yeah.
I think she'll have a chance real soon.
No, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna teach your students too.
Absolutely.
Move over, principal.
So what I've learned working with kids across South Africa, particularly the Eastern Cape, one of the most poorest provinces in South Africa, is that I remember I love holding hands with kids and putting them in a circle, have them one end going and tell me your name, tell me your age, and what do you want to become. And this is a township in Motherwell, and the kids, so nurse, doctor, it's like, you know. And then one boy comes in and he says he wants to be a gangster. And I am shocked, you know. But the kids around are not shocked. No one's laughing. I thought maybe it's a joke. And no one's laughing. And they clap for him and he goes. So I'm like, no, let's do that again. What do you want to be when you grow up? And I asked him, why a gangster? He's like, they have the nice cars. They have the pretty girls. And that's what I want. I want the nice cars and the pretty girls. And I said to him, no, there's other jobs. You can get nice. You can get a nice girl with other jobs than that. And you know what he said to me? And I'll never forget this little boy. I wish I could find him to help him throughout that whole journey. But he said, I want to be a policeman, but for the ocean. And I was like, yes, that's perfect. There are jobs like that. And having that conversation with them of who they want to become, you have such, in that moment with them, you can shift a mindset of a child. And I saw the shift in his eyes where he was like, okay, maybe there's other careers than that. And also them seeing a person like me diving in the ocean, you know, diving with sharks and seeing that it's possible. It's possible, because I am not far from those communities. So that's what I've learned, is that I can change their mindset. And also, I can also learn from them why they answer like that, because of their surroundings. And I think your surroundings can really mess with your mind. Yeah. And I really wish that we can take them out of that, you know, community and expose them. And that's what I love doing, expose them, taking to the beach, taking kids on cleanouts and going to aquariums so that they know there's more to life and you belong. Black people can swim, but I understand the traumas of the ocean, of why we're scared. It's very deep-rooted as black people, But I love the fact that I can change that and I can be the listening voice for all these little kids.
That's beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing that. Of course, absolutely. So my day job is I'm an education policy and advocacy advisor at Save the Children, and I love that job, but it's a difficult space to be in, to have to speak to international organizations regularly in governments and write policy, knowing how difficult it's going to be. So the thing that gives me hope and inspiration is the fact that every Saturday I go into a school and I spend 3 hours surrounded by young people and just hearing from them. Just like the energy injection that you get from young people and hearing just all that they have to say, and they have so much to say, is just really beautiful. And if I didn't have that, I don't think I could do the policy and advocacy work that I do. Now, I'll be totally transparent that I think I messed up the timing a little bit because I was looking at that, not that. So do we have time for the questions left on here? Okay, cool. So just a quick one moment in history that really sparked something in me is the Arab Spring. It was considered the first digital or social media revolution because it was conducted primarily over Facebook and WhatsApp, and seeing the populations of country after country stand up, demand freedom, and demanding the ousting of their so-called leaders was and remains an inspiration to me. And inshallah, I hope they see real freedom rather than the hijacked freedom that we see today real soon. And in our own work, I wanted to talk about how we can best utilize technology and social media to achieve our desired outcomes. And Anga.
Yeah. Technology is going to play such a great role going forward with youth, with the climate and technology. For me, I think technology is also great because it can create a lot of transparency. So we hope that people that fund or whatever from abroad, they can still access the data, what's happening on the ground, and technology will definitely do that to also speed up the process. Also, one thing I love about technology is that we can plug in a lot of educational resources from other people, so we're not duplicating work. And if I want to connect and say, what are you guys doing that side? You send me something, and this is something I can also present, so that time is not wasted. We can't waste any more time. The information is there. It's just how can we use technology to foster the progress.
Yeah. I would say, you can go.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
Please.
I would say social media has been the most powerful tool that I have had in getting into organizing and all things advocacy. I don't think any of the work, and we talk about it because in Mississippi we have a lot of United States civil rights veterans. We're always asking a question: how did y'all get so many people together and nobody had a cell phone? In our minds, that just doesn't make sense. And we're trying to figure out, how did you even know he was there? You couldn't call or text him, and then y'all got thousands of people all in one place. And so I think about the fact that technology and social media has made it so much easier for us to mobilize, so much easier for us to spread information, for us to meet up, for us to check in with each other, and even to make, more global connections like this so much easier, even though it's a big time difference, but we can make it work in some capacity. And the perfect example is in 2020. So in 2020, United States, there was the killing of a man named George Floyd by the police. And they had their knee on his neck for over 8 minutes, and he died. And the video went viral all across social media. You couldn't escape it on the news. And that was, of course, in the in such a huge part of COVID-19. People were still home, schools were still closed, and something about his murder just really ignited a lot of energy in people, not only in the United States, but across the world, of people protesting and getting organized and in space for this man who was killed. And so I thought to myself, I was like, man, Mississippi is like ground zero for civil rights work. Like, why are I'm seeing protests happening all over the country, New York, California, all these big cities and big states. I'm like, Mississippi needs to be a part of that conversation. Like, we showed everybody else how to do this. It's time for us to show them again. And so literally within a week, we created a social media flyer. We put it out, we let it do its thing. Within a week of, hey, repost this, can you tag us in this, can you do this? And we all had plenty of time because we were all sitting at home. Within a week, we had at least 5,000 people in downtown Jackson of all colors, of all religions, of all beliefs, who all could agree that despite how different we are, despite that we come from different parts of the state, despite that we all even speak the same language, we all can agree that this is wrong. And so the fact that social media and technology was able to bring together so many people and help to spread that message and help to spread, factual information, it really has influenced people, really showed me that though social media can be a very toxic place sometimes, and it can be a place of misinformation and spreading kind of dangerous ideas, when utilized correctly, when young organizers have access to it, when young folks have access to it, it makes the world of difference. And I don't know what any of us would do without it, for our work.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
Yes, thank you. When I think in Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Google itself, I think that there is a voice. It is a real voice, because it's true. There is a media agenda, there is a political agenda, there is a cultural agenda. But when you can post whatever you think, whatever you want, okay, things change. It changed. I want to talk about a little example. Let's imagine that you are in South America, in the Andean region, in a small community where there's internet, but there's no water, there's no other kind of public services. What happens when a children look in internet or in Facebook, that there is other people wearing the same cultural clothes than his or her? What happens when you see in Instagram people talking very proud your native language? It blows their minds, because they realize they are not alone. Because social networks and a space and a time that are legitimate. What I want to say with this, that again, our feelings are in there. And as if yesterday we had fears about being the only ones talking about some topics, wearing like any clothes we want. Okay, now we see that we can be very proud. Yeah. Now see that we are pluralism. Now see that we can have a different speech. And I have something else to say. This is a great tool, but it also means that we must go further, and that's organization. I am very proud because young people in my country have stopped the whole country only with social networks. And that's not because we are rebels with our cause. That is because we have voice and saying, okay, we don't have food, we are in poverty, we don't have employee, and let's get together and let's make changes.
Thank you. So, you guys have spoken a lot about the futures that you want to see and how you're building them. So for the final question, I want to dig a little deeper into that. So I said at the beginning that there are some young people who don't feel like it's their place to dream, and I really want us to actively challenge and fight that. So I want us to take a look at the future. Imagine it's 2043. What do you think youth leadership, what are your final words? What do you think youth leadership and development looks like in the future?
I think youth leadership and youth development just looks like young people being at the center of the conversation and being in the front. There's no reason so many places advertise themselves as youth development and youth leadership and learn this and learn that. But when you go to the program or when you go to the camp, it's just a bunch of people who are not young folks doing all of the talking and leading all of the workshops and leading all of the, just doing everything. And the young people just have to sit and listen. And that's just not what youth leadership is or what it should look like. So for me, it's young people being the ones that organize the conference, that organize the workshops, that are leading the workshops, that are inspiring each other, that are making those connections. Because someone said on the panel earlier, we have to reimagine what leadership and what even the word leader, what that looks like for the society that we want. And I think that in redefining and looking at what leadership and what the definition of that is, we also have to really look at that with youth leadership as well, and trusting young people to know what's best for them. And that trust, again, is something that we talked about a lot. Sometimes I feel like people are afraid to let us drive the truck. Like, they're like, you can sit in the passenger side, but you can't drive. And it's like, some of us, we have our license now. It's time, you can get in the back seat. It's okay. We know where to go. We have GPS now. It's fine. And so, knowing that, feeling that, embracing that, if we do it, then more young people will feel empowered to make decisions for themselves.
Yeah. If anyone else has any last comments, we can go into that. Otherwise, we want to be in conversation with all of you wonderful people. Thank you all so much for your insights. I am forever changed. That was beautiful.
I think it's such a beautiful place to actually just close off the conversation. We have the GPS now. You're very So I'm going to open up the conversation right now with Collins, who's right over here.
Hello, everyone. Oh, there's a hand behind me. Oh, okay. In Africa, we elders start first, and the young. Thank you. I wanted Hafedh to correct me on that one. This is wonderful on stage here. Again, young people, we are doing it. So this is how we celebrate them. When I say po po po, you go the same. Po po po, po po po. When we do this in the stadium, the terraces, they shake. We're gonna do it again. Po po po, po po po. This is amazing. I'm so enthused, to see the young people on stage, articulating the issues that we have in our societies. It's so amazing to have the global leadership, network bring together the cohesion, the synergy of the young and the old. The focus into the future through the windshield, and not forgetting the rear view mirror. Getting the wisdom from those that have been there before us. Just the same way that Pat Turner put it across. It's amazing to see young people talking about issues in their own governments. But sadly, I'm from the Southern Africa. I'm from Malawi, to be specific. I'm a Kellogg Fellow. I'm based in Botswana. But as I speak among my fellow fellows, not many of us young people, we are free to speak about the issues. We are hearing you young people speak about your own nations. Just across the borders here in Zimbabwe, we can't talk about anything. Months ago, here in South Africa, young models, girls were raped. When we are busy talking about gender-based violence, trying to protect our girls in societies, across the border, one government is releasing serial rapists. Please go ahead, you can clap your hands. It's sad. That's why I'm appreciating the synergy that we have here. As young people, we are learning how we can articulate without fear. In most of these African countries, freedom to speech, it's zero. We get beaten up really bad. We disappear in our societies. It was sad to hear when Sam was explaining how scary it was for him to stay in the same community that he was working in. That was then 1976. Years down the line, some young people in our societies are still living in the same scenario. We do appreciate organizations like Kellogg Foundation, who can bring such diverse society, communities together, so that we can learn from one another, so that we can be empowered as the young people of Southern Africa, as young people of Africa in general, to also fight for our own issues without fear or favor. Across the borders in Zimbabwe, some months ago, an elder person was beaten up. An old woman, 80-something years of age, if I'm not mistaken, just because they thought she expressed her liking, her belonging to one particular party, political party. But she's a has-been. She's depending on us young people to push through, like what Justice Abisaki said yesterday. Revolution is continuous. In Mozambique, Saboro Machel said, a ruta continua, as the journey continues, as the struggle continues. But to do this, we need to be together. We need your support as our elders. As young people, Maisie said it, without being acknowledged and being taken out of where she was by one particular organization, by Kellogg. My sister there in the UK said the same thing a couple of months ago. If it wasn't for these organizations, if it wasn't for WKKF, we wouldn't have been here. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
I'm going to move over to a female feedback, and then I'll come back again to you. Uncle Faith, as you said yesterday. I just want to encourage you on something that happened. I had the opportunity of visiting Malawi, and I was the host of the Malawi Investment Conference. And what really, really, really hit me so nicely in the heart was young people sitting there and actually speaking to the ministers, because the conference was happening in South Africa, because back at home they're not able to do that. But when they were in South Africa, they were able to say, but that's not true. You don't do that back at home. And that encouraged me. So keep the faith, man.
Yes, thank you. I'm Laquanda. I'm with Communities United in Chicago, United States. Generally just want to give like my reflection as far as this panel and even like meeting you guys, right? Because I think we got a chance to connect before you all got on this panel. And, you know, I think that that's a lot about what I'm hearing from your work that you're doing and your perspective countries and cities, right? Is about the connections that we make. And something that I always tell our young people in Chicago, right, is like you have to be authentically curious when you're making connections, right? And thinking about that I authentically want to get to know you. You know, it's no hidden agenda about this. I want to know what you like. I want to know about the cats, right, to the point of Anissa, right? And doing that type of engagement with young people and with people in general gives you back the humanity and gives you back that factor that connects back to yourself. And a lot of what I'm also hearing about what you all are talking about is, so first off, I want to give y'all some acknowledgement for just rocking with me before time, you know what I mean? And at dinner time and lunchtime, like making sure you save space for me and look out for my son, all that type of stuff. So I want to appreciate all of that happened even before this. And then I also thinking about, in doing that, the healing that comes from that, right? And even when we unpack all of these heavy issues and we talk about all the hurt, the pain, and also have to identify what you've been through, right? Because all you all hit on why you're doing this work is through really your lived experiences and the experiences that touched you as a kid and growing up and what you've seen your elders do. And I want us to also think about that healing process that comes from this being authentically curious, right? And authentically wanting to get to know yourself and each other and how that connects into how we build deeper connections. So those was like a lot of the words and reflection that came up for me. And also thinking about how we take care of ourselves and bring this back when we're thinking about healing to actually make the systematic changes that we want to see in our communities and that impact our young people in our communities, right? And so bringing that all together really connects to the work that we all are doing in our communities and in Chicago and the United States. That's how we look at how we do our work, is that in unpacking and connecting and understanding our own identity and creating systematic changes is the healing process. That it's a journey, right? It's not a 1, 2, 3 step, but it's a journey as a part of the process that helps us in unpacking all of the heavy issues that we have to go through. So I want to give you guys acknowledgement for being a part of my journey with me and my healing with me, right? And also understanding the connections that we have made and a lot of the similarities that we have in our work. So I just wanted to give that to you.
Just a quick reflection after the powerful justice work that Colin was talking about is really just in this session, what you've given us is a complete paradigm shift in terms of youth work. You've completely flipped the script for us about creating spaces for young people. Or spaces that are led by young people, the opportunity for young people to dream, to feel engaged, to be part of the process of engaging and shaping the future that they want. The deep conversations that you've been talking about. And I think what went so deep as well was the recognition of the guidance that is needed from the generation before us and back and forth. You spoke deeply about the innovation, that we take that guidance, but young people need space to innovate, to bring new solutions, and their voice to be honored. And my brother was saying that on a societal level that we saw yesterday with the inability to go to Soweto, that young people are still on the periphery, young people are still marginalized, young people's voices is not in the mainstream, young people's voices, and you were talking about being elected at the age of 21, that it is now our challenge to really take youth work to the center stage and really give young people a bold, audacious voice for them to impact change in our society. We want to thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you.
My apologies, I didn't introduce him. So that's Lula Mantozini. You all heard it, I think, at the beginning of the program. Actually, the first day he did the land acknowledgement. I didn't mention his name, so I wanted to do that. And we'll close it off with you, Faith.
Thank you. I want to thank and congratulate all the young, I'll call them my children, on the stage. But I'm going to throw a challenge to the two who I think I know more than the others. And those are my South London children. Okay. I'm from South London. Okay, but South London of the 60s to the 90s. I've been a West Ham supporter since
Oh my
1966.
gosh, no way. A West Ham supporter.
West Ham.
You know we won. We won the
Yes,
European.
yes.
Oh my, you know they were celebrating at the town hall. Oh,
Great.
goodness.
I was
Amazing.
watching it on TV here. And
So was I.
did you know what we won before then?
No, go on, tell me. Tell us.
In 1984, we won the FA Cup. We beat Arsenal 1-0. And Trevor Brookings scored the goal with a header. And Trevor has never been known to head a ball in his life.
Yes.
And at that time, I was working on a series called The Troubles, which was a series on Northern Ireland. Okay, so I just want to congratulate you, but the challenge I'm going to throw to you guys is that I'm a British subject, not proud of it. I was brought up in London before your parents, from 1966 onwards. Okay, and the challenge that I'm going to throw to you is that what we had to go through as African children. When I went to school in London, I was one of the 4 only black children in that whole school. And people, when we started to work in the media later on, we obviously started to change the face of the black history and the black stories. And the last thing I did for the BBC before I left was a series called Black Britain, which people still talk about today.
Yeah,
and people like, I'm sure you know of Diane Abbott.
Yeah.
Diane and I used to work together at Thames Television.
Wow.
What a legend.
And Paul Boateng. Paul Boateng and I used to work together at the COI.
Wow.
The challenge I'm going to throw to you two as youngsters of today is that now we have Sunak at number 10.
My favorite question.
Okay. The challenge is that how are you youngsters going to challenge Sunak? Because one of the first things that Sunak said when he came, okay, was that don't bring up slavery. You know, don't go to the past. No, that's gone. Let's see how we move forward. I'm saying to you, as a black British, which you guys are as well, you cannot move forward unless you know what has come before. So these are the challenges I want to pose to you guys.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you. We can both, yeah.
The political scene in the UK is quite depressing and has been for a long time now. And when Rishi Sunak came to power, there was this talk of like, oh, he's the first South Asian Prime Minister, as if that meant anything for the young South Asian kids that we work with, and if that was going to impact them at all. And he immediately showed that that's not something that he was trying to do. Representation politics means less than nothing to me. And I think it was Justice Edwin Cameron who said we need to be race conscious, we need to be gender conscious, we need to be class conscious. You need to learn from the intersectionality of all of these identities and the way that they impact communities in, we'll use the example of the UK. And Rishi Sunak is a millionaire. He does not have anything in common with me, the people that I interact with, the communities that I work with, and the communities that I serve. And he has shown a very real refusal to do any kind of reckoning with his own privilege and his own positionality and what that means for his own work. And he doesn't, he does not have the best intentions of vulnerable, marginalized people at heart. The fight, I think, is very much ongoing in Britain, and I think we constantly learn from the racial history of the past in the UK on maybe our level, but in society, in the media, and in mainstream education, it's absolutely not on the radar. We like to pretend that we're doing okay, we're doing pretty good, and at least we're not America, all of that. And as the stats are not good. We're not doing good.
No, we're not doing
good. I just, the dearth of education about British history is a real problem, and I really recognise that, and I appreciate you for bringing it up.
Yeah, and just quickly...
We need to wrap it up. We've
Can I say 3 words?
Over time. I think what we will encourage is conversation at tea time, because otherwise we're not going to give people a break before that and dinner, and that's important for people's wellness. I know there's so much...